This is going to be fun. I can't wait. Welcome back to the Shop Mini RC, everybody. I'm Ken, and today we're taking a look at one of our Losi Micro Bs. If you've been paying attention recently, we've got a whole bunch of these little guys. We put a bunch of different Radians bodies on them, bug bodies and truggy bodies, and even a trophy truck or short course truck body. Pretty cool. This is the only one we have that's still kind of stock. We painted up the arms and whatnot, but it's stock. But it's the only one left totally stock, so we're going to go ahead and make it not stock anymore. Although we still need to run some cars in our stock class, so I don't know what maybe we'll buy another one, who knows. But we got some new Nexx stuff coming. Look at this stuff, guys. Boom. New Nexx tires. They've got two different color wheels, both the yellows and the blacks, both the spoked and the solid. So that's pretty cool. And these are foam wheels and tires, so that's going to be interesting. They've got the wide rears and the narrow fronts, so not the truggies. But I'm sure that they will at some point have a combo you can buy of the truggies, or maybe they'll just sell separate rears. Since the rears usually do wear fastest, maybe they should just sell sets of rears, and then if you have a truggy, you can buy one of these and get the rears, or buy two sets of rears. That'd be a good way to probably do it. What else? Oh, yeah. This chassis conversion. This thing looks like it's no joke. It says it's a sample. We got an early sample, guys, and then this on-road body. I got to open this thing right now. Let's get into it. What? How freaking cool is that? What a crazy looking car. Window's a little small, little narrow and small for how long this guy is. This rear's a little swoopy, but hey, we'll see what it looks like once it's all on there. It's very cool. It's kind of like an 18th scale. I'm sure it's designed to fit this chassis, so we'll definitely check that out. But just to compare some size real quick. We'll do that later. I don't know what we're going to paint this guy. We need to get this thing built. We'll get this buggy conversion over to an on-road chassis built. We're going to use everything stock, so it should just swap straight over. We'll see. Let's get into that. All right, so here's everything this little kit comes with. There's also an instruction manual. Well, sheets. There's only 2 sheets, so it doesn't seem too bad. 12 steps. Nothing too crazy. It does label... Well, they tell you all the different hardware you need. A big old stack of different hardware here, separated into baggies. That's nice. Some body clips. We got some aluminum adjustable turnbuckles. Or I think these are steel, actually. Steel with plastic rod ends. Looks like we have maybe an ESC tray for our ESC receiver. Some aluminum machined parts. These are all machined aluminum. I'm not sure what these are yet. Probably part of the bulkhead or the battery strap. Maybe it's a battery tray. What else we got here? Some carbon fiber parts, more aluminum machine milled parts. Those are all aluminum. Everything here is aluminum. This is 3D printed. Some little dealies here that are 3D printed. Not sure. A rear diffuser, and that is 3D printed. It's got the chicken skin on it. It's resin. Hopefully that's going to be durable. We'll see. Carbon fiber front bumper. Some 3D printed body mounts here. Battery straps, rubber bands, and then our main chassis piece. So this is going to be cool. Guess we'll just dive right into it. Let's get started. So step 1 and step 2, pretty simple. We're just going to attach our body mounts. They use the M2x4s, and then attach our front bumper to kind of this kicker plate, which is an M2x3. The majority of the screws are M2x4s. And then we've got a couple here that are M2x3s. There's only 4 of them, and I believe those are what's used here in this little kicker plate. So this guy is going to just mount right on top of here, like so. And we'll go ahead and Loctite that guy in, just because it is going into aluminum. You don't want to Loctite anywhere that's going into the plastic or the 3D print, just because Loctite or thread locker will generally break that stuff down. Not good. So only where it's going into metal or aluminum. You don't need a ton, just a little bit. And these are countersunk, which is super nice. That way all of our screws are nice and flush. And this guy will just go straight in. Easy peasy. Make it snug, don't over tight. It's part of the reason we use Loctite, is so we don't have to over tighten, especially on these tiny little builds like this. If you over tighten, It's very easy to strip. I mean, there's not a lot of threads on these little guys, right? Not a lot of threads, and the threads are small. So definitely just kind of make sure you don't go too crazy with it. And there we go. Now, one thing I'm noticing right off the bat, this is pretty thin right here. And this looks like this is the whole thing holding this guy up. Hopefully we don't see this piece of the bumper break, because that is very thin. Very, very thin. Right? We'll find out. I definitely like the quality of this machined aluminum, though. You can tell it's high quality just the way it's chamfered and whatnot. Looks great. All right, next step. It's going to be step 4, when attached to our chassis and using the M3 screws, so the same screws. And then we're going to go ahead and put these little bulkheads, the mount. Let's see, it's combine the chassis set to the mount fix bulkhead, then tighten them with M24s. All right, we've got that front piece on, nice and flush. Again, it's kind of interesting they made this so narrow here. I'm kind of surprised it's not just wider. I wonder if it has to do with the way the steering works. We'll see when we get there. Then these guys here, like I said, they're for the bulkhead. And they kind of, it's got like a little pin in here. And you're going to just kind of push that into this hole, kind of work it in. Again, these are little 3D printed parts as well. Kind of get it so that it's nice and flush. And then you're going to use an M2x4 screw. Again, no thread lock. And don't over tighten it because it is a 3D printed part. You don't want to strip it out or break it or crack it. Just get it nice and flush and then nice and snug. You should see it kind of snug up against the carbon fiber. And just a little bit, again, don't over torque it. As long as you're flush, and as long as you're flush up here, you should be golden. Okay? Next. Looks like we're combining the mount headset to the mount number 1 and then tightening with screws. So it looks like we're pulling the front end off of the Micro B here. And we're going to get this guy together. What is that, a button head screw? Yeah, so time to tear into the Micro B. So we pull this guy apart. These screws are, I think they're 050s. Some people are able to use 13s. This 13 driver does fit in there very snug, but I was working on another one with a different driver the other night, and it was an MIP driver, and the MIP drivers are super precise, and the 13 would not fit in there. I had to use a 15, and with this driver, the 15 feels kind of loose. So I'm kind of trusting the MIP drivers because they're super quality and super precise. I believe this is an 050 screw head here. So most of this truck you're going to be able to do with an 050 and a 1.5. It's also a 050, I believe, is 1.27. But we're going to go ahead and pull this whole bulkhead and front end apart here, and we'll be right back. Little front skid here uses the 1.5 millimeter for these little countersunks. This guy will pull right out, just like so. And then to get this bulkhead off, I think we can just pull this front screw out, which is a 050. Little button head. And then this guy should pull forward. And that's going to pull up this whole front end here. I don't know if that's the way we want to do it. Where's the screws to get the... There's screws under there. Yeah, so there's some screws under here to hold this hinge pin, the block here, caster block. So we're going to have to pull this up. You can see all this stuff kind of come apart. Make sure you don't lose your pins that are holding your bell crank. There's 2 little pins in here. Hold your bell crank. We just dropped one of them. We'll get it in a second. Just make sure you don't lose those. They look like this. Okay. And I'm trying to avoid having to take the whole front end apart. So again, we've only taken 2 screws, 1 screw, and 2 screws. So 5 screws out so far. And then I believe we can just take the 4 that are here in this bulkhead right here. And actually we could probably pull one of these pins out, and that'll let us kind of flip our entire arm around here. Boom, like so. Okay. Simple as that. And then we just got these 2 little guys here with the 050. If you're going to do any kind of upgrades, you're not just converting a stock over, this is a good time to kind of do those upgrades since you already have this whole guy apart. Okay, and that's going to let us drop our whole bulkhead here. And I'm going to go ahead and just pop our drag link off of our servo here, just like that, just to separate this guy, and there's our front end. Okay. Again, we can just put our pin back in and both of our little bell crank pins, which are these little guys, and we'll be golden. All right, guys, I'm going to try to make this as clear as possible what's going on here, but you can see this is kind of how this was set up, right? That was our front end. Then we've got our little block here with our little, our front piece, and we pulled this whole thing off of the chassis. So now we removed this to be able to pull this apart and flip this around, and our whole bell crank section pins have come out, but there's usually the chassis that goes right through there, and that's what this little piece is for. That's what that next step is talking about. So we've got this little piece of carbon fiber, and it actually just kind of pushes onto our caster block here. Okay, you can see that's simulating our chassis, and then you can see there's little grooves in this kind of bulkhead piece right here, and so we can slide our kingpins, boom, all that, and it just slides right in there. Okay, just be aware that when we're doing this, we need to also have our bell crank pins in there. So we're going to go ahead and pull this guy back apart. I'm going to go ahead and try to, this might be hard. It might be easier to pull this whole piece apart right here. You'd have to pull out these ball joints and separate this, right, from here to here, so you can separate it and then rebuild your whole bell crank section. But we're going to try it without that. So I'm going to go ahead and put our bell crank pins back in. Maybe we do have to do this by pulling that apart. All right, we'll go ahead and do that. Let me get there. So I just went ahead and disconnected the links here and disconnected the shocks. We're all still together. I'm not unscrewing anything else. And we're going to pull these ball joints out because that's what pulls out this pivot block or caster block here. And remember, your Micro B comes with all the tools you need to take the whole thing apart. Now, whether they're convenient or not, that's another story. Obviously, this is not ideal, but this is a 3mm little hex wrench or box wrench. But you can at least get it started, and then you can probably go ahead and do it by hand or use some pliers or just get yourself a proper driver. And so we're going to pull these out, and then we'll get the guy back together. All right, so we got these ball joints out, and this guy will come apart. Now, I do want to talk about, this is the perfect opportunity to get some of these. This is the 3Flow 9 Flow Lock pivot balls. And check these guys out. These things are amazing, and this is a perfect opportunity to swap over to these. And then you don't have to worry about using those stupid T-wrench or getting a 3mm. Check this out. These are captured balls. So the ball actually goes through your link like this, and then you screw it down. That way your links aren't popping off the balls. These little guys have a lot of issues where the links will pop right off that ball joint. But because this is captured on the top, your links can't pop off no matter what. So that's freaking sweet. And they also use the M15, I believe. Oh, they might be 0.9s. 0.9 hex driver. So, which I don't have on the desk right now. But yeah, a 0.9 hex driver will drop right in there. Makes it way easier to work on as far as getting these things in and out. So if you're swapping over, I would highly recommend just picking up some of these 3Flow 9 captured Flow Lock pivot balls. They also make other stuff for the Micro B, so definitely check that out. They got motor plates and these guys, titanium axle shafts and servo mounts and a whole bunch of like braces and a bunch of really cool stuff, which we'll check out at some point here. We'll do a whole video on the 3Flow 9 stuff. They even have these little flow pipes that go on the back of your buggy. They just mount right here. That way you've got some little exhaust pipes, kind of cool. Also kind of wheelie bar-esque, but just a fun little scale detail. And yeah, so definitely check out 3Flow 9 as well. Titanium axle shafts, baby. Let's go. Anyway, these are kind of a must on any Micro B. I would just stock up on these guys. Awesome. Again, we're going to keep this guy stock for now just because I want to show you can do it with just a totally stock buggy, but we're going to swap over to these. So now that we have those ball joints out, though, like I said, we can pull this piece apart, pull this whole top end apart, and then come back over here, and we can go ahead and get our A-arms put back in, control arms. Now we can go and get our pins back in. Make sure that's all good to go. And drop this guy on. Nice and solid there. Go ahead and drop our bell crank pins in. And you're going to have to hold this stuff together because otherwise it's going to fall apart on you. But it's pretty simple. Okay. Now we can drop this guy back on and use our pins from our bell crank here. and drop that on. And there you go. Now that whole front end is nice and together. Actually, we should go ahead and put our little screw here, one of our button head screws back in here on the front. Okay, that's one of our stock screws. Snug it up. Don't over tighten, you're going into plastic. And then, yeah. So there's our whole front end. We're totally good there. We can snap these back on. Snap this one back on. And then all we got to do is put our ball joints back in. This is where you put your 3 flow 9s in, or like we're going to do, just use our stock. Okay. Now again, I guess maybe we shouldn't put our shocks back on if we're going to use this guy here, but if you've got a good driver, you can just drive it right back in. Super simple, guys. Basically just pulled the front end off, swapped that plate in where the chassis would normally go, and easy peasy. And it's hard because of the bell crank piece being attached here, and you have to pull these pivot balls out to get that all back together easily. You can get it apart without doing that, but you might as well just take those out and take it apart anyway, because you're going to have to do it to put it back together. Either way, so here's our whole front end, all one piece. All you got to do is attach it to the servo, and this guy is going to get mounted right onto here, like so. Hold on. Did we mess up? We messed up. I think we're supposed to mount this to the chassis before we put it all back together. Son of a... So I'm actually kind of confused here. The instructions are not clear on this at all. They basically just say put button heads into this, which is normally what holds onto the chassis, but I don't understand why you even need that. I guess just to keep it tight, these button heads. But then this whole caster block is supposed to attach with this, but it only uses the 2 screws. So they're saying that basically this just drops on there and you only hold with the 2 screws, but that makes no sense because there are holes in this piece right here, but they're not threaded. So I don't know what's going on there. I kind of feel like you should be using the screws from here to go through and hold into this bulkhead here, because that just makes sense to me that there would be screw holes here, because you're not screwing into these as they are part of the bumper. That's where the bumper screws in, right? So you can't do that, but there's no screws holding the whole front end to the chassis. I don't believe that. I don't believe that these are the only 2 screws doing it. So I'm going to go ahead and get these countersunk screws in here. You can see they come through just a little bit. So there's going to be enough. We'll get these countersunk screws to go through here and into the caster block here, I believe is what that's called. Okay. Should be gold in there, because it doesn't make sense that those holes there. Now these aren't threaded, unfortunately. So that's kind of a bummer. They feel like they're just, yeah, and they don't push through. They should just be countersunk a little bit, and this pushes through, and then you screw into this, but I don't know. So as always with this hobby, I'm going to get a little creative. We're going to use a body reamer, and I'm just going to kind of ream out this aluminum. I know, not ideal. But that's going to give it sort of a countersunkness to it, if I can get it to ream just a little bit here. Again, we do have kind of a sample or prototype, so maybe it wasn't completely finished here. And we're just going to snug it down just a little bit. Not too tight. It only makes sense that these should have screws going in here. So we're going to make that happen. All right. See, and that feels nice and snug. And we'll get our button heads that came off of our stock mount, put back in here. Again, these are 1.3s or 0.50s, depending on your driver set. Again, just snug those up because you are going into a 3D printed part, so don't strip it. And then we go ahead and get our front bumper back on. Super simple, and everything just fits. Plenty of clearance in there for those screws. So yeah, we're good to go. I'm gonna go ahead and dip a little Loctite on there again since we pulled it out. Re-Loctite this one too. Again, just a little bit. You don't need a lot, just enough so you don't have to super tighten it. Just snug it, and then let the Loctite do its thing. All right. So there we go. Front end's all attached. Yeah, I don't know why they don't show that in the instructions. It's very odd. Like I said, they show the two button heads here going through the plate into the caster block here. But again, there's not even a real reason for those. They don't do anything structural at all. So that doesn't make much sense to me. What does do something structural though is when the whole bulkhead goes onto this, what's supposed to be the chassis, you need it mounted to the chassis. So that's where those two little screws up here on this aluminum part make sense. So we'll let them know. Hopefully they'll have a revised version by the time this thing kind of hits mass market. All right, let's move on. Next is going to be the ESC box and the battery tray. I'm looking at the ESC box here, and I don't really see any countersunk spots for the screws. So I think we're just supposed to mount it something like this. I'm not totally sure what's going on there, but we will try like that using one of these countersunk screws, and we'll just screw it straight in. Does mean that the screw is going to be not flush on the bottom of the chassis, but it is what it is. Again, it would be nice if there was kind of a countersunk spot right there. I also worry that these screws might touch on the electronics on the board, cause a short. So we might end up just using, like I said, servo tape on that. Not the biggest fan of having the screws going to the bottom there. And then these guys, they are going to sit right on these kind of countersunk sliders, so you can adjust them, which is pretty cool. So let me get those on, and then I'll show you. And there we go. Got our little battery mounts in there. The one that has two slots goes towards the rear. See that? Put that towards the rear, and you can adjust these and make them fit your battery exactly as you want it, and then tighten them down. We did use just a tiny bit of Loctite just to make sure that they don't just back out on their own. Again, you don't want to over tighten them. You don't want to mess up the carbon fiber or strip out the aluminum there, but just get them nice and snug with a little bit of Loctite in there, and it should hold super nice. Okay. Again, just a little snug. When we get our battery, we'll make sure it fits. When we get everything set up, we'll adjust things. All right, the next thing we're going to do is step number 8, which is getting this rear end taken apart and thrown onto the chassis. It says combi, well, what should be combine. Combine the gear box set to the mount rear and then tighten them with screws. Hex flats 2x4s. Okay, this part should be pretty simple. So we'll go ahead and pull the 4 screws out of our rear portion of the chassis. They're a 1.5 driver. And we'll see if this is all one piece. I believe it is going to be pretty much all one piece, so there shouldn't be anything too crazy here. Unlike the front end. All right. We do have this screw up here on the top deck. That's going to be the 050 or 13. That should allow us to pull the whole rear end out. And then just be careful because that rear block can fall out and then you're going to lose your whole rear end here because these are separate block pieces. All right, and don't lose your dog bones or any of that stuff. Okay, we're going to go ahead and pull our wing off while we're at it because we're not going to be using the wing with this build. So it's going to be just the 3 screws here in the back, and that'll get our whole rear wing mount off. 1, 2, 3, and that comes right off. All right. Now this guy, we should be able to mount straight back to the rear here. We just got to put this back together with our caster blocks and all that good stuff, and we should be golden. We do have an aluminum rear block since this one's got that little lift on it. I'm sure you could probably still use that if you really wanted to, but they've got the aluminum guy here. So that is nice, and we will go ahead and use that. And again, this guy just kind of drops on here. And then our A-arms and all this stuff, we got to put it back together, but it all goes in. and you can get your pin in there. Okay. So the hardest part of this is keeping everything from falling apart while you're trying to put it together. I think holding it like this, keeping inward pressure on this portion, and then you can drop all your pieces in and get your dog bones and whatnot, and then go ahead and get your rear or inner block in, and you should be good. And then your gold in there. Again, you just don't want it to kind of come apart while you're putting it together, because again, none of this is really right. It's all separated pieces. There's no screws holding it together until you get the final piece all kind of put together. So now that we've got that nice and tight, I'm going to go ahead and make sure I kind of hold this. And now we're good. As long as you keep pressure so that your pins don't fall out and all that good stuff. And then we'll use our M2x4s. And these are going into aluminum on the back, so we're going to go ahead and use a little bit of Loctite just on the aluminum ones. If you're still using the plastic, don't Loctite it. And then we're not going to Loctite these front ones as they are going into the stock plastic. Oh, you know what? This goes into a plastic. Don't Loctite that, because you go into your plastic transmission housing there. I'm going to go ahead and wipe that clean of Loctite. Well, we'll just use a different screw, actually. Hopefully we didn't get too much in there. I feel like our aluminum mount here is not threaded, or there's not enough in there. Let me get this front screw in so I don't have to hold this together so tight. Get that nice and snug. And then we can look at the aluminum mount. Because it's not threaded. I just worry that it's not milled out enough. It looks like it's trying to see what I'm saying, like the holes aren't big enough there. And actually the instructions tell you to use the M2x4s, but I think really you should just be using the stock ones. They're M1.5s. So I would just do that. I would use your stock ones, because that's what was going into this block before, right? The pivot block here was an M1.5, the black screws that came with. Also, it's what fits through the aluminum, so I think they mislabeled that in their instructions. Don't use the M2s. It's a bad idea. Yep, that's what you want to do. Use the stock screws that came off the buggy. There we go. All right, so now we got that all golden. We need to get our little waterfall on here, which will mount down into the chassis there. And we got a upgraded aluminum one of those as well, so that's cool. And that guy's just going to drop right down. 2 little holes, 2 little pegs. And then you can drop it right there. Get the screw back in there and get the screw underneath. That's an M2 on that one. So we got the waterfall in now. Just use your countersunk and then the stock screw that went through the top portion of the brace. We're going to go ahead and put our rear body mounts on. They use the long button head screws here. And then we're going to put on our rear diffuser as well. Ta-da! Super simple. Now just remember, when you're putting these screws in here, they're kind of tight against this print. Like the hole is not just, you can't just push the screw all the way through, so you're going to be threading into that and then also threading into here. So thread them down till they're nice and flush with the end, and then push it up against and hold it tight while you tighten it in, again, because you're double threading there. And these guys go in. You're going to do a 3D printed part, so just make sure you don't over tighten. You should be good. Shouldn't take much, just a little snug, and you're golden there. So we're looking pretty cool here. Definitely a neat little setup. We need to get all the rest of the stuff swapped over. Our servo, I assume there's nothing in the instructions that kind of show that stuff. That was the last step. Well, and then turnbuckles, changing over the adjustable turnbuckles, and that's all I got. So we're going to figure out the rest on our own, but I assume it's just kind of swapping over this mount, at least the servo mount portion, over to here, and then putting our receiver on here. They give you the receiver tray because I believe it's built into the top deck here. This whole top deck is part of the bottom portion of the receiver, so that's why you have a new receiver tray. All right, let's go ahead and pop this servo out. Should be super simple, actually. 050. Pull the top deck off and then pull the servo out, and we should be able to take the servo mount here, and it should drop right on, no problem. And on your servo mount, you have these little nipples sticking out. You can stick them into the carbon fiber here. You can see there's two little tiny holes there, and they should hopefully be big enough to fit our little tabs. It's a better word for them. It's kind of tight. Kind of tight. We made it drill these out just the tiniest bit. Probably just use even a hand, like a drill bit, and your hands. You don't even need to necessarily throw it in an actual drill. Just kind of ream it out a little bit here. We'll just kind of saw. Alrighty, here we go. And we'll use our stock screws and just throw them back in here. Nice. Alrighty. Now, if you really wanted to, you could just mount this right back onto the servo there, or have never taken it off in the first place, but you don't have anything on this end to kind of mount it to, so just kind of be floating there. Plus, it's higher, and really the whole purpose is to get a real low center of gravity. So we are going to pop this out. I'm going to double check and make sure that none of the board in here will touch on these screws. Worst case, we can also throw some conformal coating down in there. We got some of this stuff. We can throw the conformal coating on the bottom of this just so that we're not going to get scraped into or have the board touch the screws. Again, they're pretty flush, so I'm not overly worried. They're not like really, actually this one doesn't even poke all the way through. This one is just barely. Part of it has to do with, I guess, just the way this is sitting. Again, these aren't countersunk, so it's kind of weird there. I don't really like that. You know, the more I think about it, I'm just going to double-sided sticky tape this. Hell, I don't even know if we'll use it. Maybe we don't even use it. Maybe we'll just servo tape directly to the bottom of the combo box here. Just saves even more weight. Although, we have a lot of static issues here in Colorado because it's so dry. So maybe it would be good to keep it in the box. I don't know. Either way, we have that option, which is nice. Our transponder is not in a case. That's this little guy here. That's for lap counting. We just double-sided sticky tape that guy on. And if you didn't know, this is how we solder it on. We just solder it onto the servo power. So you've got your black and your red wires for your servo, and that's where we solder this guy in for our lap counter. Okay. All right, where did our little box go? Here it is. Oh, the board doesn't even touch the bottom, actually. It just floats. So, yeah, your screws would not hit it because the board just kind of floats. There's little ledges in there. I just realized. You can kind of see the ledge. So, yeah, you're not going to touch the screws there. Yeah, we might as well use the case. Since it's there. The case and the board did seem to fit better one way over the other. I don't know if there's just a slight difference in the distance between here and here or whatever. I just flipped it around. It is 3D printed, so it's not perfectly perfect. So I just flipped it around, and it definitely seems like it fits a little bit better the other way. And I don't know. There's no like identifying marks or anything, so you'll just have to try and see which fits best for you. Okay, it wasn't very clear in the instructions, but I actually think this mounts here. That would make the most sense. It's the same width, so again, the instructions don't show that quite as obvious. It definitely looks like it's mounted over to the side, but it's just hard to tell. Now that I look at it, you can maybe kind of see the dots in there. Kind of. I don't know. Totally fine. We figured it out. We're good. There we go. Much better. Guess that was just kind of on me there. Go ahead and plug our motor back in here. Remember, white is for your motor. We'll probably clean up these wires a little. Maybe. I don't know. See how this goes. And our servo. We can double-sided sticky these down if we need to. And then our transponder. We'll have to figure this out once we do the body. Figure out how we're going to get this to show through the body. We'll just stick it up here for now. Hopefully... Maybe it'll go through the window. Let's see. We might have to just put it on top of the receiver there so that it can go through the window. You need to be able to see the transponder through. It's got to be transparent. It's got to have a line of sight. So this guy might end up just back on here, like so. And then it should be good through the window. Yeah, very cool. All right, where's our battery? We're going to go ahead and adjust our battery here. Battery trays. Loosen these guys up just a tad. We can slide them around. And that'll also, it's nice that you've got all this space so you could slide them and adjust your center of gravity. You know, if you're trying to do weight, you can weigh it out and figure out, okay, do we want to push this all the way forward? Or do we want to push it all the way back? How do we want it centered? I think we do want to kind of move it forward a little bit. You can use a strap, or you can use the rubber bands they included. Actually, are you supposed to use both? Let's see here. Maybe you're supposed to use both. Rubber bands keep it going from sliding out the side. Something kind of like that. Anyway, we can get it kind of where we want it, and then we'll tighten these down. Yeah, I dig it. So that works. And then, like I said, if you want to use the strap, you can use a strap. It does come with a little Velcro strappy strap. I don't know if it's necessary, but could run that guy through. Just seems like it would make it actually looser because you have to separate these out just a little bit. I guess it's going to depend on the kind of battery you're running too. Like if you're running like a mini Z battery, you know, one of the smaller rectangle, a little bit longer but narrower rectangles, that might make sense. Anyway, would have been nice to have some way to kind of manage. I guess we could just tuck this under the battery or under the rubber band. You can also cross these, right? If you wanted to, you can cross it like that. Kind of like so. That wouldn't be a horrible way to do it, actually, now that I look at it. Just throw this across. Throw this across. And you are golden. Now our side to side is not the most secure, but you know, you can do all kinds of stuff to kind of secure that. Bring out one of these, kind of like this. Bring out one of these, kind of like this, or tuck it underneath the wire here. Now your battery is nice and secure. And a lot of times we don't really remove our batteries from these guys. We just kind of charge them in the car on race cars. And so, yeah, not really an issue. Something like that, I guess. Kind of cool. And then again, we'll go ahead and, I need new double-sided tape for this. All right, so we're all buttoned up, nice and clean. All taken care of. We've got a bunch of extra screws, which is always nice. We've got our body clips, some more extra screws, some leftover stock screws. Totally fine. We've still got our turnbuckles to do, which we'll throw on, and then our body, which I'm not really in a paint mood right now, so I'll paint it at some point, but I'm not going to paint it right now. Might have somebody else paint it, actually. We'll see. But when you buy the body, it does come with extra rear and front body clips or body mounts. And these are 3D printed, so they might break if you take a hard hit, but it's nice that you get extra ones that come with the body. So if you buy the car chassis set and then the body, you're going to get 2 sets, which is awesome. That's how it should be, in my opinion, especially since they're not molded. Kind of surprised they didn't use their Nexx body mounts because they have Mini Z body mounts for the Nexx. They might be too short, though. That might be part of the issue there. Either way, comes with extras, extra body pins, so that's pretty sweet as well. We're going to go ahead and get these built, and we'll get them thrown on. Now, these turnbuckles do come with 2 different link ends. One is a shorter and one is a longer. The shorter ones are for the steering drag links, and the longer are obviously for the top turnbuckles here on the rear and the front to adjust your camber. Okay, but definitely use the short ones for the steering links down here to adjust your toe. These are reverse threaded, right? So one side is different than the other. That way, when they're on the car, you can use a tool and just spin this centerpiece. And as you spin the centerpiece, it'll tighten and loosen both sides. So they're proper turnbuckles as they should be. And yeah, so as you're putting them together, if you need to, it's a little hard sometimes. You can just stick a little wrench in there, and then you can tighten it up that way and get them to the correct length. And I'd highly recommend just starting with the length of the stock. So we'll go ahead and pull off like stock links, and we'll measure them and make sure they're the same length. These guys are super easy to pop off. And then we can get the proper length here. And again, these are rotated 90 degrees. So we're gonna go ahead and tighten this up a little bit by hand. Try to get them equal. And then we'll throw them back on, and then we can do fine-tuning adjustments from there. Another thing to point out is one side is more open than the other. So make sure that when you're putting them together and you've got the correct length, that you've got the correct sides showing so that you can pop this guy on correctly and then pop it onto the other side, and they're going to match as they should. Okay. One issue with brand new turnbuckles is this. See this? Super tight. That's not ideal at all. You want these to be floppy as possible. So one thing I always do is make sure I go through every single link end and I will loosen it up. One of the easiest ways to do this is to take a set of pliers and carefully just kind of squeeze. Make sure you're centered on the ball, and you can just kind of give it a little bit of a squeeze, not too much. Just kind of gently squeeze it. Kind of compress that plastic, and then this guy will loosen up just a little bit. Okay, it's a little better than it was. Let's go ahead and do it again. You just don't want to slip off when you're doing that and like break anything. So just kind of, again, just go around the ball joint, around the link end, kind of loosen it up a little bit. Not too much. There we go. Because you don't want it popping off, right? Unless you're using those 3Flow 9 ball ends. And then with those, you may need to kind of make the hole a little bigger on these because they're so small. The outside hole is so small that it might not fit through. So just keep that in mind. If you're using those link ends, you'll probably have to adjust. You just use a body reamer or an X-Acto knife and just make sure you do, or a drill bit, whatever. But this is what you want. You want it nice and floppy, nice and loose. So they just kind of hang. See that? Versus on this side, again, pretty tight, and it just will stick wherever you put it. That's way too tight. That's, cause tons of binding, and that'll be super bad for your handling. So yeah, just like I said, a little couple squeezes here, and you're good to go. And it's better to squeeze less until you get good at this. Squeeze less, check it, squeeze a little more, check it, squeeze a little more. But yeah, should be good now. Nice and loose. And we don't have to worry about it binding. All right. Do that for every single link end. And again, just another little tip. I think this is kind of the easier way to get these on there. Once you get them started, you can kind of just use a hex wrench or Allen wrench, whatever, and then just tighten them on like that. I'll usually kind of tighten them up a little bit and then back them off till they get to the correct length. Another thing I want to point out is on these short guys, you want to be careful that you don't tighten them so much. You want to make sure it's equal, because if you go too far on one, you're going to end up pushing the rod end or the rod through the rod end, and it'll come through on here, and you'll create a little bump that causes more binding. You can almost see right there. Do you see that? I don't know if you can see that. I was trying to see how far down you could go. Just be aware that can cause a bump there, and you could end up having binding. Again, that's why we go through and we kind of squeeze with the pliers and make sure things are not bound up and are nice and loose. But if you make this too short, your rod will still push into it, and there's nothing you can do about that. But if you ever go that short, you're gonna have crazy amounts of toe out, and you don't really want that. So, but just be aware that can happen. Your rod can push through your rod end. Just a little note, it's easier to pop off your shock here. Just pop it off, super simple. And then that gives you the ability to pop these ball joints on and off, just so you can get some pliers down in there and actually pop it in there. Just a little tip. Well, alrighty guys, look at that there. All ready to go. We have a couple little link ends, rod ends left over. Like I said, some screws. And yeah, we should be good here. Here's our body. The body does come pre-trimmed and pre-holes. I kind of wish they trimmed it a little less, just because I'd like to be able to make the final wheel well marks. So I kind of wish they would trim less, and then I can go in and trim it some more. I already trimmed the front here to lower it just a little bit, or to raise it a little bit. It does look kind of goofy sitting like this, but once it's sitting on the ground, it kind of, remember this is angled, right? So when you compress, it moves backwards. I kind of, in that regard, wish they would have figured out a way to kind of make this more vertical. So vertical front, vertical rear, so it wasn't quite so angled. And they could have adjusted the way these mounts are, and just kind of pushed this whole thing forward. Maybe even just making it so it mounts straight to the chassis versus having that little, angled piece that it mounts to on top here. They could have just made it mount flat. That would have been cool. Now, obviously, earlier I was saying this is very narrow. We see why now. Obviously, because of the A-arms. I forget how narrow the buggy is. But, yeah, like I said, my only concern with this whole thing so far is this front bumper right here is just very, very thin. This piece right here. So that worries me if we get hit too hard. Definitely probably want to put a foam piece in here. Foam bumper piece. But yeah, overall, should be fun. This should be super fun. I feel like the front wheel well is a little far forward, even when this is compressed. It's a little far forward, or back, excuse me, a little far back. Which is, again, why I wish they'd let us kind of cut our own wheel wells. But once it's sitting down, you can see it sits a little better because there's weight on that suspension, right? You've got a little bit of weight on there, and then you've got the droop when you lift up. So, yeah, overall, looking pretty good. Looking pretty awesome. Like I said, just this fender well, I think it needs to be moved forward just a little bit on the body, or the whole body mount holes need to be shifted forward just a tad. Problem is, your diffuser is right up against the body, so you can only move it forward so much. But yeah, give us a little bit more fender up here, I think. I don't think anything's going to rub, though. Let's go ahead and turn this guy on. Yeah. Yeah, no rubbing, so that's good. Very close, but this is going to be fun. I can't wait. It's going to be fun. Guys, I couldn't help myself. I had to bring it out onto the driveway just for a second. We're going to take it to the track tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. But yeah, we're going to show all the guys what we've converted the Mini or Micro B into. Oh, this thing's going to be awesome. This is going to be so good. Well, grass. Anyway, let's go ahead and compare it to some other cars so you can see the scale. This is going to be awesome. I'm curious if it'll handle on the asphalt here. Again, it's low. Ugh. Oh, look at that. Oof. Oof. As long as you're not hitting any big rocks or any big dips, it seems okay. Probably scratch up the chassis a little bit, but hey, fun is fun, right? Oh, can't make it up the curb. Let's go. Have fun. All right, let's go compare it to some other stuff. All right, so here we have some Micro Bs. These are stock chassis, although they've got different bodies on them, but you can get the overall idea of the difference in length between a stock Micro B and the conversion. Quite a bit of difference there. Obviously, same width, but definitely longer. These are the Radians bodies, Radians bodies, and they are super cool. They have a whole bunch of different ones. We have a video on these. You can check it out right over here. Did want to compare it to a Mini Z. Here's a 1/28 scale Mini Z. This is a 98 millimeter Mini Z. Just the body, but you can kind of see the difference there. Quite a bit of difference. Quite a bit of width difference. But these are 1/28, 1/27 scale, depending. This is definitely closer to a 1/18 scale. I've also got a 1/24. One of my first RC cars from back in the day. This is a super old school. And yeah, it's a 1/24th ABC Hobby DMT-SP. DMT stands for Driver Training Machine. But yeah, this guy is probably from 90, 94, somewhere in there. 124 scale. Okay. Then we've got the 112 scale low C NASCAR. Quite a bit of difference there. Can't even fit it in the camera right now. But there you go. So low C NASCAR is 112 scale. Again, just kind of affirming that this is 1/18th. It'd be nice to be able to compare this to a 1RC. Unfortunately, I don't have any 1RC cars. At some point, I think I kind of want to get into the 1RC oval cars, just because, again, we're mini RC. That's what we do, right? But we don't have any of those, and they're a very popular small scale RC. They're a 1/18th scale oval track. So it'd be cool to be able to compare this to those. That'd be pretty awesome. But yeah, so I'm thinking it's pretty close to those, though. Also, just some anecdotal fun stuff. Here's a micro or a mini T 2.0. It's almost the same length. Good old mini T 2.0. Here is a chaser. They call it a 1/24th, but it's huge. It's more of a 1/18th to me. This is the FMS Chaser trophy truck, or really more of a short course truck with the size of it, but it's got trailing arms, so I don't know, trophy truck, short course truck. Either way, you kind of get the idea. There's a TRX 4M, 18th scale. It really kind of fits when you think about a person sitting inside that vehicle. It's about right. A little longer, but the actual width and height seems about right. An SCX 24. Obviously looking a little too small there. This is really closer to 20th scale. You can see the width there. Yeah. A low C Mini B, so the big brother. And then we've got the Hack Fab conversion for a low C Mini B. This is the Omni chassis, which is kind of similar to what this is based on. Just this is using the 1/18th scale Mini B and 1/16th scale, I guess, and then pushing it up to basically a 12th scale. So 12th scale-ish and 18th scale. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if Nexx comes out with an oval track chassis. So Hack Fab makes a half chassis, where it's basically half this chassis is gone, and it's designed to put all the weight on one side, your battery and everything goes on this side for oval track racing. That'd be a cool conversion here as well, something like that. I mean, you could use this chassis for oval track for sure. Doesn't have to be a half chassis. You can have everything laying pushed off to one side of the chassis, and it would work perfect. So yeah, some cool comparisons there. Let's go run this guy at the track. We'll just go run it around our local carpet track. We also have a mini Z track. We'll see if how this does on there. Obviously, we race our Micro Bs on there, so it should be just fine, just a little bit larger. All right, guys, so we got this guy going. You do have to kind of adjust your endpoints on here, which you can do. I'll show you real quick how to do that. Basically, you turn your steering wheel all the way to the right, you give it full reverse, and then you turn on the transmitter. Once it's on, it'll be blinking. If you turn left, you can adjust your endpoint left here on the SR, and then you turn it right and adjust your endpoint on the right with your SR, center it, and then shut it off, turn it back on, and those endpoints are now set. So that's definitely something you're gonna probably wanna do on this guy. But let's go.
This feels so smooth. Yeah, I'll see you guys.
All right, so I'm feeling like it's kind of pushing. There could be some tuning that could happen, you know, to adjust your toe and a whole bunch of stuff to fix that. But one thing we're still running is the stock pizza cutter fronts. I almost guarantee if you throw some rears on the front, you're gonna get a ton more grip. So we might end up doing that. And like I said, we also have these guys. the Nexx Racing foam tires. Now, I don't know how those are going to do on the RCP track, but we're going to throw some on and I'll let you know. All right, swapped over the rears onto the front to have a ton more grip now.
I'm gonna need lots of Marshalls for 8 super stocks.
Oh yeah,
Get everyone
did you
out
see
here.
that? I'm driving with one hand right now, so kind of rough, but
Oh, here, bring it here.
woo! Woo-hoo-hoo!
Okay, that's one left.
2 minutes to the start of the race.
All right, so that didn't take much to see what that felt like. Definitely adds more traction. You're gonna have to readjust everything if you change your front tires from the thins to these. I think it's just definitely need to adjust stuff. But yeah, that definitely helps get more traction for sure. We're gonna try these guys next. I'm gonna keep the pizza cutter thins on the front, and I'm gonna build them just like a buggy. We'll just see how they run, just like they're gonna do the fatties on the back and thin ones on the front. And we'll see, and then we'll, if it seems like it needs more traction, we'll throw fatties on the front too.
Someone's gonna have PTSD at the end of this one.
All right, so I went ahead and put these tires on there,
What to do. Keep driving.
and
Nice
they're
lady
much
calls
larger.
your
Even
name.
the thinner ones are much
Oh, watch
larger
under the loop, watch under the
diameter,
loop, watch under the loop.
and so now
That is clear.
they rub when you're
Thank you,
trying to
Marshalls.
run this guy.
Oh, there's a wheel off in the switchback.
See
Watch
that?
the switchback.
We can get caught
Watch
on
the
here.
Switchback.
See that?
That's clear.
Jerry Wessel.
Go high on the straight. Go high on the
So-
straight. That's clear.
Press McCann stunned. Jamie Fredericks.
That's not ideal.
Racing Ryan Dunn.
All right, guys, that's a race.
Really wish this was sitting a
Jamie's
little
gonna
more
take that one.
forward.
Johnny in the 2.
Again, I
Jerry
feel
in
like
the 3. Ryan
this
in the
chassis,
4,
I
Press
think,
in
would have
the
been much
5,
better
Eric
if it
in
were
the 6,
literally a
Al in the
half-inch
7.
shorter.
Xander in the
The whole
8.
chassis a half-inch shorter.
What a good race,
And there's room to
guys.
do
That
it
was
right
pretty
here. They
impressive
could have
for
shortened
how
it
many
up.
cars we had out
Easy
there.
F1.
So I don't know.
1 of 1.
That's unfortunate though.
Yeah, I'll get
Like I said, it's gonna catch unless we trim the body out a ton. And even when it's sitting down, you can see it kind of,
Joe Musso.
when you've got it compressed a little bit, it's catching. So I don't know. That's unfortunate. I had high hopes for these tires on this car, but they're probably more for the buggy, I guess. I don't know.
All right, F1 guys.
Just they are a
get 'em
much
out
larger
there.
diameter.
Joe is
Look at that.
already turning and burning. He's going to beat all your butts.
That's a huge difference in diameter.
You ready?
We can measure them when we get home, maybe. We'll just run it without the body real quick. We'll see how that feels. I work with Nexx Racing quite a bit, and they sent it out for me to try.
That's smooth. I like it.
45 seconds to the start of the race. Jerry Wessel. Jim on lap 3. 30 seconds to the start of the race.
7 a.m.
So
I
yeah,
believe.
those tires definitely
If you
feel
wanna
really
watch the
good,
real F1
even on the
cars.
RCP. So I'm going to be interested to try those on one of the buggy setups. That'll
I
be
don't
pretty
really like
awesome.
Monaco.
I worry about it rubbing
The
even
real
more
race
on this
is
guy because there's not a
qualifying.
lot of room on here.
16
So
times
running those
in the last
tires
20 years.
on this guy here might be kind of rough
Pole
because
has won the race.
we'll rub pretty heavily.
So you got to qualify.
So I don't know why
first
they
to
made the
win.
diameter of these so much larger. Kind of weird.
No one really likes Monaco.
I think even on this guy. Oh yeah, it's a big difference.
All righty.
Big
Get it
difference.
in.
Interesting.
We've got Jimmy,
Either way,
Jimmy, Ryan, Joe.
Very cool.
Jimmy, did you have a
Very
16
cool.
second lap?
Like I said, if I was
Okay, I'll fix it.
if I was able to give feedback, I would have probably made this car just a little shorter. I would have taken up this space here and made it a half-inch shorter, just the whole chassis. So the wheelbase is just a little shorter. I don't know what they base their wheelbase on. If it's based on some other platform, maybe it's based on the 1RC, 1/18th scale stuff for dirt racing or oval track racing. If so, then I guess I get it. But I feel like you'd have a little bit better proportions.
We got a wedgie.
Just shortening it up just a little bit. And even here, you can even see we're already too long there. Just shorten this guy up. You would have brought it back to here. You You can shorten up the rear a little bit, kind of adjust it, the body to fit that shorter chassis, and I think it would have looked a lot more proportionate. But I love it. It's awesome. That's my only complaint, I think, is that. And then these tires, like I said, are being too big right now, especially with the way the body sits, just because, again, a little off there, little off, even when compressed.
I'm gonna wait.
You can't be under full compression, obviously, so I don't know. Just they should have given me plenty of room up
Go
here.
high in the straight, go high in the straight, go high in the straight.
And you'd be better off to have the tire and the wheel sit further back in here, and then when it compresses, it goes back up inside more.
All right, 2.5 down,
So
2.5
yeah,
to go.
it is what
I
it
got
is.
Jimmy,
But
Jerry,
very
Joe,
cool platform.
Ryan.
I'm happy that it's offered just
halfway
in
through.
general.
Let's
Like
look
the
at
fact
the
that
top
anybody's offering something
Jimmy's
cool
got
like
a
this.
blistering
I know HackFab has some
7-7.
options too, but just to have another company
Jerry
out there
with
doing
an
that, so
8-7.
cool. So we had literally just finished editing what you guys just saw of this guy, and the next day, when we were about to upload, this shows up. So this is another package from Nexx Racing, and they sent us out an updated sheet, it looks like, and some extra parts. So here's the updated instruction sheet. A much better look at that front end, showing how it kind of goes together. A little bit better use of words. Yeah, seems a little bit better there. So that's good. So they updated that. And then sent us out a bunch of parts. Another body mount. Oh, and look at that. It's molded now, guys. Oh, okay, that's awesome. So it looks like these 3D printed parts are now going to be molded versus 3D printed. Okay, that's freaking sweet. All right, so that makes me super happy. The value of this kit just went through the roof. I thought it was going to be all 3D printed parts, but no, they're going real deal here. And then a new chassis, obviously. I wonder if, please tell me. Oh my gosh, you guys. Oh, I just dropped it because I'm so freaking excited. Look at that. It's just a little shorter, just like I mentioned. What the hell? Oh, no, it's not. It's not a little shorter. Yeah. Oh, it is a little shorter. What's going on here? Yeah, so there to there. Yeah, guys. Oh, my God. Okay, that's so freaking awesome. If you can't tell, I'm crazy excited right now. All right, I'm curious what the difference is here. They didn't tell me anything. This just showed up in my mailbox. All right, so that's perfectly aligned. It's shorter than I mentioned earlier. I said like a 1/2 inch, but this is only going to be maybe 4 millimeters shorter. Let's get it to 4. I'm sure they took it in an exact amount. Yeah, that looks like 4 millimeters shorter. Nice. They also like rounded it out right here. It's a little rounded versus this is like squared off, maybe to help give clearance on those A-arms. Oh my gosh, that's so freaking cool. I love it. Where did they shorten it up at? Where did they actually shorten it up at, though? Let's see. It looks like it got shortened up. Okay, that's all the same. Yeah, they shortened it right here. So it looks like where the battery and the ESC mount have kind of... Oh, maybe? Hold on now. Yeah, the battery and the ESC mount, because this is shorter now. So they dropped this line back a little bit, and then those holes here, so everything basically from the top of these holes back has dropped back. Totally fine, because now we just slide our battery all the way to the back. Yes. Okay, awesome. What else? Was there more stuff in here? Oh, a new front bumper. Wonder how the front bumper is different. Oh, the front bumper is longer. Okay. Because they want it to still meet the body. It's just moving that. Yeah, it's just shifting this back a little. That's fine. That's fine. So the body stays the same. They're just literally shortening the wheelbase a little bit, which is awesome though, because you can always swap the front bumper to put different bodies on. So that's cool. And then actual molded front body mounts, actual molded ESC tray. What else we got? Is that everything? And then some black rubber bands. for that battery tray. Oh gosh. All right, we're gonna get this swapped over. That's freaking cool.
A few moments later.
All right, guys, all swapped over. All the 3D printed parts are gone. That longer chassis is gone, shorter front bumper's gone, and look at how much better it sits on that body. So good, so much better. Also, that shorter wheelbase is going to make it a little bit, probably handle a little bit better in the corners. You're going to rotate a little more. Hopefully we don't traction roll too much, but I do like the shorter wheelbase in general, so that's cool. And it definitely makes these Nexx tires fit much better. Also, these are going to be way more durable, being, you know, injection molded. The fact they injection molded every part, it means the whole thing is injection molded now. There's no 3D printed parts anywhere. It's all aluminum, injection molded, and carbon fiber, guys. So that is freaking sweet. I feel like they addressed every issue I mentioned to them. The only issue that I still have kind of with this kit is just this really thin portion of the front bumper. I mean, that is super thin, and I feel like you take a good hit, it's going to break right here. One thing they could do is this aluminum piece that's kind of like a Y that splits off right at the bottom, and then the top where the bulkhead mounts and the bottom where the bumper mounts. They could, off the top of this, the top of the Y, kind of waterfall it up and down right here. That would be a good solution, is just to pull this up more and then waterfall it down into 2 points on the front bumper here. So this would be an aluminum piece. It would just all one piece come down to here. And then they would still have access between that waterfall to get screws in there, or do whatever you need to do there, and you'd have extra mounting points. So that would be really good. That'd be a good solution to really, it would really strengthen up the front bumper by doing that. Again, just taking that Y and waterfalling it down, and then mounting it right there. That'd be awesome. Another thing they did, which I failed to mention earlier, but was an issue, is this rear bumper kind of didn't feel the most stable, because if you notice, the holes are very close together. So they fixed that, which is pretty cool. They widened up where the screws go. So that's way more stable now, which is awesome. Yeah, pretty cool. After I, first kind of put this together and shot all the footage you just saw, I gave them a bunch of feedback, and like within like a weekend, they sent out the new stuff. So they really, I don't know if they were already planning on making some of those changes. I'm sure some of it was based on other feedback they got, but man, they updated quick. And then to get these injection molded parts all done, freaking awesome. And yeah, it's just so good. So good. All right, guys, I appreciate you hanging out. If you've got any questions, put them down in the comments below. Why don't you go ahead and put something else in the comments below if you made it all the way to the end of this video. Maybe we put micro on road. Put micro on road, because it's a micro B, but now it's on road. So freaking sweet. Let us know you watched the whole video by putting that down in the comments. And then, like I said, if you got any questions or anything else, put them down in the comments. A huge shout out to all of our channel members. They're all over here. They get to see videos early before anybody else. All that good stuff. The highest levels get sticker packs sent out every month. And yeah, priority comment replies to everybody that's a channel member. Also access in our Discord, which if you're into Discord, down in the description is a link to our Discord. But channel members have a special channel in the Discord, so that's awesome. And yeah, I just love to see the channel members. Like I said, they're a huge help, and this channel wouldn't be where it is without a lot of those guys. So huge shout out to them. Also, if you're not a subscriber, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that subscribe, share, notification bell, and hit that like button right there. Just because those things really help us with the algorithms. We got to beat the algorithm, guys. We got to tell YouTube that you want more content like this. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Get out there and build something awesome, guys. Build a car, build a course, build a community, and then smash it, crash it, and bash it. But don't break the expensive parts. Peace.